So to draft this off-shoulder bustier gown with no waistline pattern, and first of all, I'm taking off 6.5 inches for the off-shoulder. So place 6.5 at the top of edge of your paper. Mark your bust point, your chest line, your underbust, your waist, your hip, and the length of your dress. Now, if you are working for, if the length of your dress is 40 for the front, you want to add 2 inches to that, which we would use to plot a bust dart. Okay, so for more explanations about bust darts and how you get that done, make sure you check my updated bodies block drafting. I explained it more there. So now indicate all your lines: your hem, your hip, your waist, underbust, chest line, and bust point. The first thing we'll do is to plot the waist dart. So my waistline here, I marked half of my nipple to nipple measurement. Mine is 4.5. I marked that on my waist, straight to my hem, and also to my bust point. Now to plot the dart on the underbust, I'll mark 1 inch on both sides for the dart. I'll mark the same 1 inch on both sides on the hem and on the hip. Use your ruler and connect the dart. And you connect this dart to the underbust. Now from the bust point, you come down by 1 inch to connect your dart. Now let's plot our top dart. Our nipple to nipple is 4.5, but at the top here, I'm going to be marking 3.5. From the 3.5, I'm going to make a dart of 2 inches. Come off from your bust point by 1 inch and connect the dart. We'll also connect from the underbust to the 1 inch below the bust point that we marked earlier. Now you connect your top dart. Use your curved ruler to connect the both darts. Make sure your dart lines are not sharp. So now we have plotted our darts. Now let's take in our vertical measurement. So I'll start from the waist. I'll take 1/4 of my waist plus 2 inches, which is this dart. We just have to replace it. On the chest line, I'm going to be taking in 1/4 of my bust plus 1/4 of an inch to replace that dart that passed through the chest line. On the hip, 1/4 of your hip plus 2 inches for this dart. On the hem, take 1/4 of your hip there, minus 1.5 because it's a pencil skirt. Then from the 1.5, you add back your 2 inches. Now go ahead to connect your lines. Now after connecting the lines, let's plot our bust dart. So from this bust point, you come down by 2 inches, which is the difference from the front and the back. We'll use that to place a dart. I'm just shading off the dart areas so you know where you have to cut out if you're trying out this pattern. Now for my top, I want mine to be about 12 inches, my across chest for the front. So here we have 3.5. I'll just from the dart and add 2.5 inches extra. For the armhole area, I'll come down by 1/4 of an inch to make sure that the arm is free enough to move when we attach sleeves. So now we created our arm. You can keep your neckline like this, or you can deepen it a bit. For me, I came down by 1 inch and just connect to the first dart leg. Now we'll go ahead to cut out our pattern. And remember, when you close off your bust darts, there's always a shortage of fabric. So when you're cutting around your waist area, you're going to keep extra space so we can close the dart. First things first, cut out your pattern. So when you get to the waist area, add extra inches. Open up your waist dart to the bust point. it would enable you close off your bust dart, just like I'm doing here. And when you close it off, you will see that there's a shortage of pattern rather. Take a masking tape and hold this down. Go ahead to use your marker to complete the shortage, and then cut off on the actual line. Cut off the armhole, use a masking tape to hold your bust dart together, and now go ahead to cut out all the unwanted parts from your pattern. Make sure you cut out everything because you don't want to leave anything unless to affect your measurement later. So now when we are done, this is what our front bodice look like. Let's just go ahead and draft out the back. Now to draft the back, get a fresh pattern paper. Now for this back, we'll mark our actual gown length. Remember, for the front we added 2 inches extra for bust dart. So again, take off 6.5 inches, mark your chest line, your bust point, your waist, your hip, and the length of your gown. Connect them into a straight line. Indicate which line is which so you don't make any mistakes. And first, let's plot our waist dart. So on the waist, again, mark half of your nipple to nipple, mark it on your hip and also on the hem. Now from your nipple to nipple, you'd mark half of an inch on both sides for the back dart. At the bust point, mark your nipple to nipple and connect your dart. Now this dart can stop about an inch or 1.5 inches before your hip line. So just make sure you don't take anything away from your hip line when you're connecting your dart. Connect from a straight line from the hem to the hip. Now this is what we have. Let's go ahead and take our vertical measurement. So again, take in quarter of your waist plus 1 inch for dart. On the chest line, you take quarter of your bust. On the hip, take quarter of your hip. On the hem, place quarter of your hip and take off 1.5 inches. Just the same thing we did for the front. Place quarter of the hip and take off 1.5 inches. And go ahead to connect your lines. So now we'll create our back darts to reduce zip bulging. From your waistline, you come in by half of an inch and contour your center back. Just what I'm doing here. Just watch closely. Make sure you don't take anything from your hip while you're doing this contour. And replace the half of an inch contour. Please don't forget this part. Replace the half of an inch back. So now our nipple to nipple line, you will connect it to the top of the paper and we'll contour the neckline for the back by a quarter of an inch on both sides and connect this to the bust point. So now to create our armhole, take the front piece, the front side piece, place the armhole of it directly on the side of the back also. Make sure the sides are matching and the tip of the papers are also matching, and just connect with dot lines to create your armhole. So after this is being done, we'll not use this one, we'll use this one instead. Now just go ahead and cut out your pattern. Please do not forget to cut out the dots. They are very important, okay? So after cutting, make sure to label your pieces. Label them in a way that it will be easy for you to indicate which piece is which. Now this is our back pattern ready. Now let's introduce our front. This is my side front and my center front. I'll just label it center front here. It will be cut on fold. The next thing we're going to do now is to plot the pad pattern. My padding for the center front is going to start from the edge and end on the under bust. So whatever it is you're padding, it must not pass your under bust. So mine is from the top of my paper to my under bust. While for the side on my bust point here, which I just indicated, I'll mark my nipple to nipple. Mine is 4.5, but I made it 5 inches because I want to cover my boobs properly. So again, like I said, your padding does not pass your under bust, okay? So use a curved ruler to connect your padding for the side. So this is how I'm connecting my own padding. Make sure your dart from the bust point upwards for the center front matches with your dart from the bust point upwards for the side front. So this part here I'm indicating would be for my pad. And the only seam allowance we would add to our padding is the 1/2 inch I'll add to join the pieces together. Like the center front to the side piece, the 1/2 inch. Now let's go over to creating our sleeve pattern. So this will be cut on fold at this point I just indicated, and the width of my paper I have is about 15 inches and the length here is 9. On the thumbnail the sleeves are 2, so one can be 9 and the other 11, just like I indicated here. To get your armhole, again take one piece of your pattern, place the side, make sure the side and the top of your paper match, and just cut out your armhole. So now when you cut this out, this is our sleeve pattern ready. So this is enough allowance for me to add elastic. I'll add elastic to the tip to create the gathers. So like I said, add extra if you want to. You can make your sleeve 2 layers, that's what I mean. This is all my pattern ready. Here are my patterns. In the next video we are going to cut and sew this.